Hi there, I'm Gina Gardiner and I'm very pleased to be with you today. I'm an international best-selling author, I'm an empowerment and relationship coach, and I work with businesses helping them be more profitable, but at the same time have better relationships with their staff and across the whole business and with their clients and so on, and help them be more profitable and have better work-life balance. The theme today has been brought up for a number of reasons, but the main reason is that the issue of friendship has cropped up in just so many different contexts this week that I decided it's time not to ignore it anymore. It's been one of the questions that have been asked through the comment box with a previous live, a Facebook Live, but also it's been a theme that's come up with a number of clients today, this week, and today and yesterday, I've spent with old friends, two different sets of old friends. And so I've had the polarized sort of versions of friendship, really. Friendship where things have gone sadly awry, and friendship which has been sustained over time and is really positive. And so I thought it was a theme that was worth exploring with everybody, because friends are an incredible resource. They are enriching and enlightening, and they can make such a positive difference when you have good friends and things are going well. However, if you are on the receiving end of friends letting you down as you see it, that your perception is that what you had hoped was a two-way process with those friends has become very one-way, then it can be incredibly hurtful. And so I'd like to explore with you what friendship means to me, and I'd love to know what friendship means to you. What are the things that you value about friendship and why? So friendship is one of those things which we have so many different types of friends, and each of those friends will be in our lives for a short time or throughout our lives. And yet they have a very different feel to them, and we will have different friends with whom we do different things. So, looking at friendship, one of the things that seems to me that makes friendship so precious is that they are people that we spend time with, who enrich our lives, or at least they do when things are going very well. And it's nice to see, Viv, that you've joined us, because actually I'm talking about you, because today Viv and Tony came to spend the day with me. Viv and I go back a very long way. I taught her son when I was still a classroom teacher. She was the chairman of the Parents Association at school, and she became my secretary. And I then became friends with her husband, Tony, and they've been my friends ever since. And we're going back, 30 years, I think it is. But anyway, a very long time. Actually, it's long, 30 years. One of the things about being with really good friends is you may not see them for a while, but as soon as they walk in, you carry on where you've left off. And you might not see them, but really good friends are the sort of people that you can phone up and say, I've got a problem, or I really feel low. And you know that they will support you, that they'll be there for you, that they have your best interests at heart, and that they'll tell you if you're doing something that is silly or that they think is going to damage you. But they're going to do it in a way that's constructive and actually helps you recognize that there is another way. Great friends are very clear about that they want the best for you and with you. And I think so many of us lead incredibly busy lives. Often these days there's a distance between the friends that you have made over the years as people have moved away. And I think if you go back not that many years ago, people lived in the same environment, the same community, and lived in that community pretty well all their lives. And so friendship groups were much easier to maintain because the geography was easier. Now we have an enormous range of communication tools. You know, you've got the phone, text, you've got Skype, WhatsApp, I mean, and many more platforms. But one of the things that I find quite interesting about looking at how young people are working today, who will talk about, you know, I've got 1,000 friends on Facebook, for example, or I game with somebody who lives in a different country, but we share an internet game and we're friends. And yet the actual contact between people seems to me to be different. I'm not saying it's necessarily worse, it's just very different. And so one of the things that I wonder about is, how will friendship develop for those people who most of their contact with friends is actually through a screen? Because there is something, for me at least, and perhaps it's because I'm old-fashioned, about, you know, when friends arrive and friends go, you have a hug, and that there is that physical contact, and that there's that joining of lives, that you have things that you physically share during your life that you can then look back at, that you can appreciate, that perhaps you can't do through a screen. So yesterday I saw some, I won't call them old friends, long-standing friends, and I've seen long-standing friends today, people who I know have the core values that are very, very similar to my own. That we have a real sense of where boundaries are, where things that we believe are the right and the wrong way to do things. That things like trust and compassion and care and humanity, that we have a similar value. Now, we may actually demonstrate those in a different way, but at the heart of that, we know that we actually care about the same things. And I think that that's not necessarily the only way to have good friends. You can disagree with people politically or religiously, but if your core value is that it's okay to disagree and have a discussion, and it doesn't mean that you are going to dislike or hate that person because they've got a different set of views to you, if that core value of valuing difference works, then that friendship will work. However, if at your core value is anybody who doesn't think the way I do, anybody who's different to me, if that means that they are somebody I don't want to associate with, then that friendship won't work. One of the things for me around friendship is that sense that you can be vulnerable, that you can be yourself. And I want to make the distinction between being vulnerable and being a victim. And for me, being a victim is when you consistently think about your own stuff, where you're very self-centered, where everything is about you. And of course, there are times when the focus may be on you or on your friend. But in great friendships, that will shift depending on the need of the two. And it will never be that it's my needs at the cost of the other friend's needs. There is an equality, although it's not tit for tat. There's an equality over time. So let's look at when things have gone wrong, and I'm going to give you some examples. A couple of these are personal examples, and the rest are from clients. And the reason I'm going to share them with you is because I think when you look at when things go wrong, it's probably easier to see what's at the core of those difficulties, rather than trying to, when things are wonderful, trying to see them. It's much easier to see it when things go wrong. It's not comfortable, let me just say. So I'm reminded of a friend I met in hospital, and I knew her for a number of years. And generally speaking, it would be me who would make the phone call. And I would listen and listen and listen. And we both had a diagnosis of the same thing. But I would listen to how nobody understood how awful she felt. Nobody understood her pain. Nobody understood anything. And I would listen and listen and listen. And very occasionally she would ask how I was and what I was doing, and I would tell her, and very quickly she'd get back to what was going on in her life. She was very definitely in victim mode. And it was about 3 weeks after my mum had died that I phoned her, and for 45 minutes I listened to all of her stuff, and then she said to me, "And how are you?" And I said, "I'm really sad. My mum died just before Christmas." "Oh dear," she said, and went straight back to her stuff. I found that very difficult, and what I realised is that that was not a friendship. That was somebody who was using the relationship to offload. And whilst it's perfectly acceptable for people to do that at times, this was consistently the pattern of her behaviour. And it was at that time I decided that I was no longer going to phone her. She never phoned me, and the so-called friendship died. I'd like to give you an example also of a friend of mine whose father died, and she found that people would walk across the road, people that she considered friends would walk across the road rather than talk to her because they found it uncomfortable. Instead of going and giving her a hug and saying, "You know, words feel really inadequate, but I'm really sorry about your dad," they said nothing. And when she went back to work, nobody said anything. And she found that almost impossible to deal with, on top of the grief about her father. So friendship is absolutely a two-way thing. And I think, you know, if you've got friends who you are spending time with where it feels very one-sided, you have to make a decision whether that's something you want to continue with. Now, I need to make the distinction. I'm not talking about in the short term, because all of us go through times when things are difficult, and we'll use our friends as a sounding board. We'll use our friends to offload to. And that's, I think, acceptable, so long as it's a two-way process in other ways. But when it's very one-sided, when it's always you that are doing the sorting out, the running, the listening, and you don't get a look in, then I think it's time to decide whether that's okay with you. And if it is, great, carry on. But if in the end you feel as if you're disappearing, that you don't have value within that relationship, I would say to you, question it. Is this truly a friendship? Or is this somebody who's got into a habitual pattern of behaving in a particular way? Now, before you drop that friend, it's worth saying in a non-confrontational voice, in a very quiet, neutral voice, "I've noticed a pattern. Do you know what? It would be lovely if you could phone me, if you would initiate the contact, because it's always me." Or if they're going on and on and on, that you say, "Look, I realise this is hard, but how about we talk about something else?" Ultimately, if you say nothing and you don't give them the opportunity to change or to recognise what's going on, and if you don't, then you have to put up with the consequences. You can't change them, you can only change you. But by changing the way in which you react to what they're doing and interact with them, very often those people can change. So let's look at what's gone on with the 3 clients who have arrived this week, and each of them have had a different issue around people that they thought were friends. And I'd be really interested in what you think. Client number 1, been diagnosed with cancer, and in the middle of dealing with chemotherapy. People that she had been friends with, who they used to go out and have girls' nights out with, initially very, very supportive. But suddenly something happened and they started to be different. And one of the things that they articulated to her that they were upset about is that she hadn't asked them to go to the appointments at the hospital with her. They'd asked somebody else. And she pointed out that they worked, that, why would she ask them to go when they're working when there was somebody else who wasn't working who was prepared to go with her? And actually, there was a bit more to the situation, but that those people's so-called friends were making it all about them. And the fact that they didn't like the way that this friend was coping, when actually she was doing the best she could. It was dealing with the cancer, dealing with the chemo, dealing with the fact that she has young children, and how are they going to cope with her being ill and losing her hair and all of that 9 yards. And those friends, so-called, only being able to see past the fact that they had the hump because she'd asked another friend to go to the hospital with her rather than her. So, you have to question, were they truly friends? And I think it's really common. I know lots of people who, if they've become very poorly, then friends, so-called, have not been there for them. And then that person is dealing with the being poorly and the fact that people have abandoned them. Another client this week came very upset because she has a number of friends, and what she's discovered is that they've been gossiping behind her back, and things that she's told people in, she thought, confidence, have become common knowledge. And so people that she felt that she could absolutely trust have not only gossiped amongst themselves, but then they've told other people who told other people. And very private information has become public knowledge. And so at a number of levels, she is incredibly upset that her trust in them has been completely misplaced, and that details of her life that she didn't want spread around the very small village that she lives in has become public knowledge, and she feels very uncomfortable about that. So if you look at these things and look at each of these in turn, there are some real lessons to be learned. Because if you want great friends, you've got to be a great friend. Now, it doesn't always follow that if you're a great friend, other people will be a great friend to you. But ultimately, you're the common denominator. You take you into every situation that you go into, and you have to live with you. So whatever anybody else is doing, you've got to be true to yourself. And I would say to you, if you are somebody who has a great sense of being a good friend, then continue to do that. But choose who you do it with. Ultimately, you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to. Being mindful about the way in which you think, the way in which you act, what you say and what you don't say, that's your responsibility, as is your own emotional well-being. And, if you allow other people to be responsible for you feeling happy, contented, or whatever, you have to put up with what they do. So think about being a good friend, and the first and most important friendship that I believe you should have is the friendship that you have with yourself. Be a good friend to yourself. Look after yourself. Be kind and compassionate, not overindulgent, but kind to yourself. Value who you are, because if you don't value who you are, how do you expect other people to value who you are? If you don't treat yourself well, other people will see that as a tacit invitation not to treat you well. So in everything you do, it starts with you. And if you don't feel great about yourself, and if you don't treat yourself well, you don't look after your body and your emotional and spiritual self, it's then going to be very unsurprising if other people treat you badly. Now, there are always going to be people who don't have the same set of values as you, and who may very well behave in a way that you don't think is right. But then you have a choice whether you want to stay friends with those people or not. For me, friendship is perhaps more important because I'm single, and my friends and my family, my extended family, my sister and her husband, my aunt and my nieces and nephews, they're very, very important. But even if you have a significant other, I believe it's important that you have people outside that friendship which will enrich not only your life but your partner's life. And actually, having that level of independence where you're not solely reliant on one person, I believe is much healthier. It's much richer. But also, there'll become a time when that person's not there. And if you've only relied on them, where will you be? If you're with a partner who doesn't like you spending time with anybody else, I would question why. Because if they are so territorial that the only time that the only person they want you to spend time with is them, I would suggest that you need to question that. Because if you value yourself, and you value yourself no higher but no worse than anybody else, as you would a really good friend, then part of that is that you'll want to have a really friendly, well, a healthy relationship with the people that you have around you. And if you absolutely rely just on one person, I think that leaves you vulnerable. Hi, Anne. Thanks for joining us. Another friend has just joined me. And, one of the things that I would like any of my friends to take on board from what I'm saying today is how highly I value them, how special I think they are, that each one of them in their way, and they're very different, enriches my life. And I'm I think I benefit hugely from having great friends, and I really do appreciate them, and thank you very much. Those of you who perhaps don't have so many friends and are feeling lonely, there are lots of ways that you can get out there and make friends. And one of the easiest ways, I think, is to actually go and do something for other people. Go and join a group of people who are doing things for others. You go and help raise money. Go and help support other people. Because in doing so, you meet like-minded people, and it gives you a focus, so you don't have to worry about, making a good impression in terms of talking about who you are and what you do, because you've got a common goal. Join a club or activity that engages you. But social contact, that human contact that we get through friendship is so precious that it actually does, it not only enrich your life, but it lengthens your life. There's huge amounts now of research with social interaction, friendship actually improves your immune system. It also helps you feel good about yourself. It creates endorphins and dopamine and serotonin, so that you have all of the feel-good hormones going on. It lowers your blood pressure. It certainly diminishes the chance that you'll get dementia. And so it makes sense at every level to be good friends with yourself and to get out there and make good friendships with other people. If you're really shy and you don't have confidence, then focus on making the other person feel comfortable. Ask them to talk about them and get to know them in the first instance while you become comfortable with them. So I've got a challenge for you. As great friends, all right, as a great friend, think about the people that you know and that you care about. And I would ask you, make contact with them. It doesn't have to be a long phone call. It doesn't have to be a long letter. Text them and just say, thinking of you, how are you? How long does that take? Make contact. Be clear about what you want in a friend, but also think about how are you as a friend? Is it a two-way process? Are you a good friend? Are you somebody who notices the other person's feeling a bit low, or celebrates with them when things go really well? Now, I'm on day 13 of my challenge, and my mission, which is pretty audacious, is that I want to positively impact on 1 million people within the next 5 years. Now, this may not all be in first hand, but every person that I actually impact on, every person who perhaps has a slightly different perspective, who takes on board some of the things that I'm talking about to enhance their life, to make it even better, will then have impact on other people. And for me, it's all about creating people who are, if you like, the spiritual leaders, the spiritual matriarchs and patriarchs of their family, of the nucleus of their community and society. We live in a time when the news is full of all of the dreadful things going on, and yet there are millions and millions of people who are engaged in really positive activity, helping one another, being kind to their neighbours, helping people, supporting others. But we tend not to hear about that. We tend to hear about the war and the separation and all of the nasty things that are going on. And I would really ask you, can you please help? And there are simple ways you can help: to join the Genuinely You group, to invite other people to join that group, to spread the word by sharing this video, because there will be a replay of it, by liking the page, and by letting people know that Genuinely You is designed to help people step into being their best self. If you're interested in having a copy of my latest book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment, you can download that book for free by going to the website genuinely-you. And I've created the Thrive Tribe for like-minded people who want to develop themselves. And if you're interested in trying it out for $1 for a month, then you can do that at no risk. At the end of the month, if you don't like it, then you can just stop. But within that is a structured program to help you feel more confident, happier, and more fulfilled. There's interactive group coaching sessions, there's visiting speakers, and there's an interactive private Facebook group where there's coaching going on and support from myself and other members of the tribe. So the link's in the blurb at the top, so do join me, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode. But thank you very much, and if you can share this and get other people to join us, helping everybody feel better about themselves and lead a happier, more fulfilling life, I will be forever grateful. Sending you all lots of love. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care now. Lots of love.